The symbiotes, an alien race called the Clintars, have always been one of the most fascinating extraterrestrials in the Marvel Universe. A parasitic creature that requires bonding to a host, the symbiotes have always packed quite the punch, and have proven themselves to be a force one should not take lightly. What originated as a plot point to introduce a new black and white costume for Spider-Man soon turned into a sentient alien that would slink its disturbing gross self into the hearts of many a reader. So today we're taking a look at which of these symbiotes is the baddest of the bunch, with our list of the top 10 strongest symbiotes. Note that we won't be counting the hosts, only focusing on the alien creatures themselves. So with that in mind, let's jump in. And at number 10, Venom. While Venom may be the most iconic symbiote, and the first to make an appearance in the Marvel Universe, he's actually the weakest of the symbiotes. This is because he's the first of the bloodline. The offspring of a symbiote is much stronger than its parent, and since Venom was the first on Earth, all of the offspring symbiotes born from him are exponentially more powerful than he is. Each generation of symbiote is innately more powerful than its predecessor. That being said, it does come down to a matter of how you use it. Eddie Brock has always had a proficient amount of control over the Venom symbiote, and the other hosts that have worn Venom in the past, from Flash Thompson to Mac Gargan to Peter Parker himself, have all exhibited differences in the symbiote's functionality that are unique. Venom first hit the scene in the Amazing Spider-Man issue 252 back in 1984, first appearing as an alien costume that bonded with Peter Parker during Secret Wars. It wasn't until the Amazing Spider-Man issue 300, 4 years later, that Venom would take shape as Venom, and not just a parasitic symbiote. It bonded with Eddie Brock, who at the time wanted revenge against Peter Parker for ruining his journalism career. Up next, number 9, Mania/Maniac. The Mania symbiote first appeared in Venom Volume 1, Issue 1 in 2003. It was cloned from a piece of Venom that was obtained by the Ararat Corporation, with the goal of using it to exterminate all life on Earth. Mania was a bit of a weirdo. It refused to bond with hosts, and instead would just brutally murder them, just for the fun of it. At one point it bonded with a prison inmate named Eric Moody, and then jumped ship to an elderly mental patient named Alphonse Poigna. Moody managed to fight off Mania, but only for it to bond with Alphonse and then mock Moody about getting raped in prison after seeing his memories of the event. And then Mania raped and murdered Moody. So yeah, not the kindest symbiote on the block, clearly. It would later become Maniac, bonding with Lee Price, who had previously bonded with Venom. Price renamed Mania as Maniac after Price had ambushed the original host and badly injured her with the sonic cannon and flamethrowers, taking the symbiote for himself. Apparently Price is permanently bonded with Mania, using his immense willpower to remain bonded to the symbiote at all times. Up next, number 8, Scream. In 1993, a Venom story arc came out called Lethal Protector. It followed the story of the sinister Life Foundation and its leader, a scientist named Carlton Drake, who discovered a way to create symbiote soldiers by extracting something called seeds from the Clintar alien race, and growing them into fully formed symbiotes. Essentially, it was their offspring. The Life Foundation aimed to use these symbiotes as guardians. Their whole shtick was that they were preparing for something called MAD, which is mutually assured destruction. And they had a whole roster of wealthy clients who were paying for the Life Foundation to ensure that they would have comfortable lives if the world went to shit. Once Drake had kidnapped Eddie Brock and managed to forcibly extract these 5 seeds from Venom, he was able to bond the offspring with members of the Foundation's security force, one of which was named Donna Diego, who became the Yellow and Red Scream. She eventually was defeated by Eddie Brock and killed, but her siblings would outlive her and cause Brock a whole lot of trouble down the line. Speaking of, in at number 7, Riot. Riot has been getting a lot more attention these days, thanks to his upcoming cinematic debut in the Sony Venom film, starring Tom Hardy as Eddie Brock. Now Riot is one of Scream's siblings. It bonded with Trevor Cole, a particularly aggressive and unhinged mercenary working as part of the Life Foundation security team. Riot is known for being the largest symbiote of the 5, and often uses very aggressive and violent tactics in combat. He often created large bludgeoning weapons from his arms, along the lines of hammers or maces, and tended to be considered the strongest out of the group, although his exact strength level was never really elaborated on. After he and his siblings were defeated by Eddie Brock, they were all shipped off to the Vault, a prison for superhuman criminals that had a wing specifically for extraterrestrial threats. There he was experimented on, pretty cruelly, and then in the Planet of the Symbiotes story arc in 1995, Venom, in an attempt to subdue an invasion of symbiotes, let out a powerful telekinetic scream that caused them so much pain that they all committed suicide, actually a thing, which then affected Riot and his siblings. Which leads us to our next number. In at 6, Hybrid. Riot and his siblings broke out of their confinement at the Vault after Venom's psychic shriek. They then merged into a super hybrid symbiote known aptly as Hybrid, who would then briefly bond with a character named Scott Washington, who was a guard at the Vault. Scott realized through bonding with Hybrid that Hybrid wasn't actually actually that much of a threat after all. Instead, the experiments they had undergone were causing it a lot of pain, and the symbiotes were actually the ones preventing Scott, who had a lot of anger issues, from being violent. Unfortunately for Hybrid and its desires to be a good-intentioned vigilante, Eddie Brock was on a mission to hunt down the symbiotes, and ended up killing Washington in the process. Hybrid would then be found by the US Army, be separated, and then be put to use as part of the Mercury team in order to fight Carnage. Needless to say, being the combination of Riot and the other symbiotes was significantly stronger than just a singular symbiote. Side note, the sibling symbiotes, Phage, Agony, and Lasher, didn't make this list because of how similar they were to Scream and Riot in terms of ability and power. Although, Lasher was trained to bond with a dog named War Dog, which appeared in Carnage vs. Deadpool, and it's like really awesome. Symbiote Dog. Speaking of Carnage though, up next, number 5, Carnage. Carnage has never been one to hold back, but that's also what makes him a bit vulnerable. He's kind of loose cannon at times, like a speeding train of violent chaos. Loose cannon, kind of vulnerable. Carnage first appeared in the Amazing Spider-Man issue 360 back in 1992. He was created with the intention of being a much darker version of Venom, a total psychopath who had no sense of morality. His host Cletus Cassidy was modeled after DC's Joker, and the character is often depicted as Venom's archenemy. So how did he come to be fiction-wise? Well, he's Venom's offspring. When Venom reattached to Eddie Brock in prison, Venom left its offspring inside the cell. Clintar have no emotional attachment to their offspring, so Venom didn't bother informing Eddie about it, thinking it was of no importance. That symbiote offspring then bonded with Cassidy, and Carnage was born, with their bond being even stronger than Brock's and Venom's. Carnage broke out of prison and started murdering left, right, and center, leaving the word Carnage at the scene of each of the crimes, written in blood, as one does. And at number 4, Scorn. Scorn is the hybrid prothesis created from Carnage that combines both technology and the symbiote. Now in Carnage Volume 1 Issue 4, Carnage is taken back to Earth after breaking out of the Raft prison by an American industrialist by the name of Michael Hall, who then locks up Cletus Cassidy and uses the symbiote to create new suits of armor. Carnage breaks out of its containment, bonds with a psychiatrist named Tanis Knives, but then things get a little weird. Carnage leaves his own offspring within Knives' prosthetic arm. Knives is horrified by this, cuts her arm off, but then later would rebond with it, becoming Scorn. Scorn is essentially a techno-hybrid, a machine symbiote who is able to fuse itself with different kinds of technology and mechanical weapons, which most definitely came in handy, no pun intended. And at number 3, Anti-Venom. Anti-Venom first debuted in the 2008 story arc New Ways to Die in the Amazing Spider-Man 569. Now at the time, Eddie Brock was not bonded with Venom. He had cancer, and he got a job at a soup kitchen. His boss, a man named Martin Lee, aka Mr. Negative, had a healing touch, which then cured Brock of his cancer. So when Venom came along and tried to rebond with him, Brock's skin became caustic to Venom, causing him to be enveloped in a new white symbiote created from the remnants of Venom, which then merged with his white blood cells that were charged thanks to Mr. Negative. Anti-Venom's got a slew of standout abilities. When Brock was the host, he was immune to fire, heat, and sound-based attacks. Anti-Venom also has a neat little nifty healing ability. He produces antibodies that can cure things like diseases, radioactivity, parasites, and the effects of drugs. Whenever he's around Spider-Man, he cancels out Spidey's powers. Now that being said, Anti-Venom does come with his own unique weaknesses too. Concentrations of Norman Osborn's supervenom via Freak's DNA makes it incredibly vulnerable, and if touched by Mr. Negative, his healing abilities can become void. Brock would later sacrifice the symbiote to cure people from the Spider Island virus though. Moving on to number 2, Toxin. Toxin, being Carnage's offspring, has been long considered the strongest of the symbiotes. Now Carnage was disgusted by his offspring and hated it, especially since he knew he would become stronger than he was. With Carnage being his father, this makes Venom his grandfather. Now Carnage tried to kill Toxin whereas Venom tried to protect it, the intention of raising it to become his partner, but was also like a little bit concerned about Toxin since he was the 1000th symbiote of their line and feared that he might go insane due to a genetic breakdown. Now Toxin can also do some pretty cool stuff. He has inherited the abilities of his lineage, like sticking to walls and the ability to shift his identity. He can blend into his surroundings to become practically invisible and undetectable. He has unlimited webbing, and he can form solid weapons from his limbs. But in addition to that, he has a much more accelerated healing ability compared to his father, exceptional tracking abilities, and prefers to not take over the host's minds. Rather, listens to their opinions instead. He has a stronger resistance to heat and sonic-based attacks too compared to Carnage, and has a venomous bite. And finally, in at number 1, Null. Null is not only the newest symbiote to debut in the Marvel Universe on this list, but also the most powerful, all thanks to who it's bonded with. He's the god of symbiotes. So before we get into this number any further, heads up, this does contain spoilers for the recent Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman Venom run, so you've been warned. Alright, so in this Venom run, we're getting a bit of a retelling about the history of the Clintars. The first issue revealed that something called the God of the Symbiotes had awoken, and it kinda looked like a giant dragon when it first appeared. Essentially, his backstory is that Null was a god who retaliated against the Celestials when they created the universe, and created a living sword from his own shadow, then used the Celestial's severed head to forge his symbiote sword in its cosmic energies, along with creating a symbiotic suit of armor from the eldritch darkness that he commanded. Essentially, he had manifested the first symbiote out of his shadow, so he could kill a celestial. Null's range of abilities are pretty vast. He has something called unbrachonesis, which essentially gives him the ability to create, control, and manipulate a fount of eldritch darkness, which is a manifestation of the primordial void that existed before the universe, also known as the living abyss. So yeah, overall, pretty intense stuff. Now he can dominate symbiotes, being the divine progenitor of the symbiotes and the nexus of their hive mind. Now that means he can take control of Venom and essentially revert him to more primitive and aggressive behavior. Null is immortal. He has lived for at least 13.7 billion years, is self-sustaining, has a regenerative healing factor, and all of the strength and durability that you can imagine. His one weakness though is divine electricity. He's vulnerable to it, so individuals like Thor can really f him up real good, temporarily destabilizing him.
At number 10 is Kid Venom. Kid Venom is the newest addition to the symbiote roster, making their debut in Marvel's Unaliving of the Venomverse limited series, and with his upcoming origin story set to release early 2024. This unique character was created by the talented manga artist Taigami, also known for Unsung Hero. Kid Venom's origin story takes us back to 10th century Japan, where a brave warrior named Kintaro is determined to protect his village from the mysterious symbiote attacks. But here's where it gets a twist. To defend his people, he bonds with the symbiote himself, known as Clinter, becoming the sensational Kid Venom. Sorry, I'm at the very top. Now with incredible powers and wild abilities, Kid Venom faces off against the ferocious Carnage. The clash between these two symbiote powerhouses promises to be an action-packed showdown in the page Unaliving of the Venomverse. At number 9 is Hybrid. Not the usual hybrid we're used to, but this one is the hybrid symbiote in conjunction with the Maker. So if you're unaware, in the world of Marvel Comics, the symbiotes have always been a source of intrigue and danger, but the Maker hybrid takes things to a whole new level. Imagine combining the twisted genius of Reed Richards from the Ultimate Marvel Universe, where he's evil, with the powers of not one, but 4 Life Foundation symbiotes. We got Riot, Phage, Lasher, and Agony. And that's what we get with the Maker hybrid. See, the Maker is known for his sinister intellect, and he's already a formidable villain on his own. But when you add the symbiotes into the mix, you get a nightmarish creature with the elasticity and brain power of Mr. Fantastic and the ferocity of the Carnage. It's not your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man villain. He's a menacing force that poses a threat even greater than the Carnage himself. This all came to be when Cletus Cassidy's chaotic plan threatened those who've bonded with the symbiotes. And so Peter Park and Eddie Brock sought an unlikely ally, the sinister Reed Richards from the Ultimate Marvel Universe, also known as the Maker, in a bid to create a machine capable of safely extracting the symbiote codex from previous hosts. However, evil Reed wanted to test the thing out on Dylan against his will, and the dude wasn't having it, releasing the Life Foundation symbiotes, leading to the birth of the monstrous new hybrid. If you're enjoying the video so far, you can support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Top 10 Nerd, and ringing that notification bell. At number 8 is Madness. The Madness symbiote is a fusion of the hybrid symbiote we just talked about, plus Scream and Toxin, minus the Maker. Madness is made up of the Life Foundation symbiotes in a new mix and match form unlike any other. So the story goes that when a group of billionaires attempted to create a new society, they acquired the 5 symbiotes to guard it: Agony, Phage, Riot, Lasher, and Scream. Additionally, a strain of the Toxin symbiote was also held by Alchemex, along with a bunch of other symbiotes, but they're not important for the story. Thus begins Madness's origin story, as all 6 of these symbiotes were stolen, merged together, and bonded to Corwin Jones to form Madness. From the acid-fleeing Agony to Lasher's ability to possess multiple beings at once with its organic lashes, the art shows of how the multicolored symbiote retains the differing personalities of its constituent parts. But when Madness was ultimately defeated by Misery, aka Liz Allen, who, if you haven't heard of, definitely stick around, the Madness symbiote was recovered and bonded to a brain-dead human cyborg by the Life Foundation to create an obedient super soldier, giving us the Symbiotex Madness offshoot. This host was later unalived by Spider-Man, leaving the symbiote strain to be secured once again by Alchemex. At number 7 is Sleeper. Meet Sleeper, the 7th spawn of the infamous Venom symbiote. Sleeper's origin story is a tad bit different from the brain-hungry Clintar you might be familiar with. Concerned that early bonding might turn it into a monster like the other symbiotes, Venom and Eddie Brock decided to let Alchemax study it non-invasively. Despite its youth, Sleeper has got quite the personality, a bit smug to be honest. It boasts about its superiority thanks to its nurturous upbringing, and has a soft spot for Dr. Stephen's music taste. But don't get on its bad side because it's quick to anger and fiercely protective of its parent. Sleeper's not just a pretty face though. He wields chemokinesis, the power to manipulate chemicals, induce emotions, and all the other symbiote powers including cloaking itself. It's a hero in its own right, looking out for Eddie's son Dylan, and going to great lengths to protect him. At number 6 is the Scorpion symbiote that we've all been waiting for. This slimy character made his debut when Lee Price infected Mac Gargan, who was already no stranger to symbiotes thanks to his time as Venom. Price's experience merged the remnants of the Venom symbiote with Gargan, with the piece of his own Maniac symbiote, giving birth to a green and black Scorpion symbiote that mirrored Gargan's iconic Scorpion armor look. Under its influence, Gargan went from literally trembling in fear to embracing the power he craved. This new symbiote was one tough cookie, taking on Spider-Man and Agent Anti-Venom in a showdown. However, it met its doom in a rematch against Agent Anti-Venom, leaving Gargan symbiote-less but not defeated. The legacy of the Scorpion symbiote doesn't end there though. Gargan's obsession with symbiotes led him on a wild ride. He even went as far as to become the soldier for the anti-symbiote task force, all in the hopes of bonding with a Venom symbiote once more. But the universe had other plans. Dark Carnage came to town, leaving Gargan paralyzed, and yet he somehow managed to snag yet another Scorpion suit. What's truly fascinating here is the impact on Gargan's personality. The symbiote didn't have a voice, but it awakened something deep within him, making him succumb to his addiction to symbiote power. At number 5 is Madame Venom. In Extreme Venomverse number 3, we're introduced to Madame Brock from Earth 31913, a symbiote variant that's an absolute game changer. She seamlessly blends classic Venom traits with fresh ideas and a touch of Madame Web's mystique, offering a unique take on the character. We also get to talk about Webslinger here, a cowboy Spider-Man from the same reality. After a chance encounter in a small town, he befriends Edna Brock, aka Madame Venom. She's not your average Venom variant. With her whip as her weapon, she embraces the lethal protector ideology, adding a new layer to the character. Madame Brock's design is a fusion of Venom's monstrous appearance with a classical western twist with that black veil of hers, making her a visual standout. But the most exciting part is Madame Brock's connection to the web of life and destiny, which could make her a key player in multiverse level events. This new Venom variant is a breath of fresh air and one of the most intriguing additions to the Marvel Universe. At number 4 is Black Cat Venom. This version of Felicia Hardy has the same history as her 616 counterpart, up until Spidey decides to get his black suit checked out by Reed at the Baxter Building. But in this reality, Black Cat, being the stealthy cat burglar she is, tails him and sneaks into the place. Now the twist is that she takes a look at the alien symbiote costume and thinks about her rocky relationship with Spidey. And as it turns out, she realizes that it was the symbiote trying to keep her around, not Peter. See, her and Venom have something in common, as they both love a guy who doesn't quite get them. Faced with this revelation, Felicia decided to cut the creature some slack. She released it, and bam, the symbiote immediately latched onto her like a kid to candy. Mr. Fantastic, the Human Torch, and Bagman stormed in, yes, Bagman, because Peter's not in his costume, believing the symbiote had possessed Felicia. Spider-Man did his thing and trapped them in a fiery cage. Tensions rose, but then Reed Richards, the smart guy, had a trick up his sleeve. He zapped the symbiote with a supposed sonic gun, but it was really just a mood checker. As it turns out, the symbiote was all good with Felicia, and they swung off into the sunset, an unlikely duo. At number 3 is Misery. Misery was born from the twisted minds over at Alchemax. See, they were trying to create the ultimate symbiote, mixing and matching different strains, but the Carnage symbiote they got their hands on wasn't playing nice with the others. It was a real loner. So enter Dr. Stephen and Liz Allen, who decided to get creative. They exposed a bit of the Carnage symbiote to the anti-venom serum, hoping for a breakthrough. But things took a turn when Liz herself got tangled up in this symbiote business. Now Liz got some new tricks up her sleeves, like an insane healing factor and the ability to go liquid-like, along with the fact that she looks absolutely terrifying. At number 2 is Father Brock. In this universe, Eddie Brock was a priest of the Roman Catholic Church and an associate of John Deward, a mob enforcer and loan shark who was after Eddie on account of his gambling addiction, leading to substantial loans from the mob. Eddie even stole from the church in order to pay back his debt, but he gambled that away too. Faced with inevitable confrontation from the mob and looming guilt from stealing from his church, Eddie prayed for forgiveness, and that's when he encountered the Venom symbiote. His chance encounter with the symbiote unleashed a darker side, leading to the gruesome fate of the mob guy John Deward as he was devoured by the Sin Eater Venom. But this Venom is just as cunning as he is animalistic, framing the schizophrenic Emil Gregg to throw the police off his trail. And at number 1 is Eddie Brock's Spider-Man. In this alternate universe, Eddie Brock's life takes a turn when Peter Parker met his demise while trying to ditch the black symbiote suit. Feeling guilty for indirectly causing Peter's demise, the symbiote seeks a new host in Eddie. But it's not a seamless transition. The symbiote pretty much hijacks Eddie's body, only allowing him to speak and move while keeping a tight leash on his thoughts. Things get interesting when Dr. Octavius rolls into town. During the brawl against this new Spider-Man, Ock discovers the symbiote's weakness, which is loud.
Kicking off the list at number 10, we have Dr. Carl Malice. Dr. Carl Malice was always interested in the subject of superhuman powers. Ever since the earlier days of seeing the Fantastic Four in the newspaper, he became obsessed. Got a degree in biology from the University of California. He was brilliant. So brilliant that the guy himself turned Sam Wilson, Captain America, into a werewolf. You heard me. But in Superior Carnage issue 2, the Doc got an upgrade himself. His merging with the Carnage symbiote allowed him to walk again, which is miraculous, but of course he can also transform into the supervillain as well, which is always a fun side effect. Number 9, Deadpool. So before the black suit found Spider-Man in the Secret Wars storyline, the symbiote briefly bonded with Deadpool. But this isn't the only time Wade Wilson has come face to face with a symbiote. In Deadpool vs. Carnage issue 3, we get a much more violent take on this situation. After battling Deadpool, Carnage and Shriek got out of town, but Deadpool was able to track them down, following these clues until eventually he found the pair driving down the highway. So Wade crashed into their car, injuring Shriek and making Carnage very mad in the process. So when Wade finally catches up to Carnage later on, he's ready for the attack. After he rips Wade to pieces, Wade ends up piecing himself back together, but this time with some more symbiote goodness. And before we go on with this list, if you guys want to go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, that would be great. It really does wonders for our channel, especially while we're working from home. So we thank you so much for your support. Let's get right back into this list. Number 8, Matt Gargan. He first entered comics in Amazing Spider-Man issue 19, and in the next issue, he was branded new enemy of Spider-Man, the Scorpion. Now, he's a former private investigator hired by J. Jonah Jameson to find out just how Peter gets those A1 photograph of Spider-Man. But he is Spider-Man, so that was never an easy task. It wasn't working, so Jameson paid Matt 10 grand to have this experiment done from Dr. Farley Sitwell, and Gargan then turned into the Scorpion. Good times. Egghead recruited Scorpion for the Masters of Evil, but after they were captured and released, Egghead didn't come back to recruit Matt again. That's a little rude. That's a bit rude if you ask me. He's Scorpion, he's still pretty good. But down the road, Norman Osborn recruited Scorpion and was ordered to kidnap Aunt May. But during this mission, the symbiote found him and they connected through their hatred for Spider-Man, and they ended up bonding. He joined the Thunderbolts as well in issue 110, and the government outfitted the symbiote with electric implants to keep him in line. He worked for the government first as a rehabilitation program for criminals, and then he joined on the more popular Thunderbolt roster, Norman Osborn's Dark Avengers. Number 7, Black Cat. Venom wanted everything to do with Spider-Man from the beginning, starting of course with his love life. So in Amazing Spider-Man issue 316, he went after another close acquaintance, Black Cat. We see her lost in a train of thought as she realizes that her and the spider should be together. And then in comes Venom just to ruin the whole vibe. Venom attacks and figures that she must know where he is, although she actually doesn't. But before Venom heads out, he casually mentions that Parker's wife didn't know where he was either. Adding insult to injury, literally, in a sense. But Black Cat got an upgrade herself later on in Venom issue 159. The Maniac symbiote took control of her briefly, but luckily this didn't last too long as she was able to break free from the Inklings. Although they do look like a fun time, Black Cat's better as Black Cat. Number 6, Red Hulk. He made his first appearance in Incredible Hulk issue 1 as General Ross, but come the first issue of volume 2, Ross gets a little bit of an upgrade. He becomes one of the Hulk's greatest threats. He becomes the Red Hulk. Now the Red Hulk was created using gamma radiation, just like Bruce, but what makes him even more of a threat is the fact that this guy also has cosmic rays added to that aggressive mix. The Red Hulk doesn't get stronger the more angry he gets like Bruce, he actually gets hotter. Yeah, he turns into Ryan Gosling after too long. No, he gets stronger in anger, he burns up, physically he gets hot, and then makes an absolute mess. He's already a monster in this case, but in 2011's Venom issue 13.4, Red Hulk Ross was sent to retrieve the Venom symbiote from Flash Thompson. But when the Red Hulk got close, he turned into this. He's a Ghost Rider Venom mashup, which some would consider a pretty bad idea. I'm one of those, that's way too much. So loud too. I look at that photo and I'm like, man, that's gotta be loud. Number 5, Carol Danvers. In 2010's Siege Spider-Man run, we meet up with the Avengers, and at this point, they've gone to Asgard to take back the world from Osborn. Now, Spider-Man, of course, joins the battle, which is great, but he's doing more of a groundwork type scenario. He's not up in the sky, he can't fly, so he's working stuff out on the ground. The fight begins above Broxton, Oklahoma in Asgard, and Venom is just laying waste to everybody at this point. And then Spider-Man comes in with the quips, and then after falling down to Earth, Carol Danvers comes to the rescue, reminds Peter where the fight truly is. Up there. He says he's more of a Street Fighter guy, that the Avengers are better off in the sky, and then when Carol asks about Venom and how his powers come from the suit, she goes for the impossible. She straight up shoves her arm down his throat, and once the symbiote is free, it then attaches itself to Carol. And then we have this ultimate badass creation. Venom loves it. He says Carol is his new favorite superhero. Flying does have its perks, I'll admit. Number 4, Groot. I am Venom. I am Venom. A family favorite when it comes to the MCU is, of course, Groot. We catch him as a clumsy adult in the first Guardians movie, then we catch him as a clumsy child in the second Guardians movie, and then by the time Infinity War rolls around, the little dude became a teen, even giving up his branch to create Stormbreaker. But a version I hope we never see on screen is Venom Groot. Now this happens in Guardians of the Galaxy issue 21. The Guardians trap the symbiote in after a daring mission with Gamora, luring it out. Things are fine at this point, it's working, until Groot is asked to hand Rocket the thing with the thing on top. So Groot's like, that thing? With that thing on top? Sure. This seems to complicate things because Groot has no idea what he's talking about, so he grabs the symbiote and accidentally sets it free. And before Rocket even knows it, it's consumed Groot. Number 3, Peter Parker. During the events of 1984's Secret Wars, Spidey came across a symbiote while on Battleworld. In issue 7, Spider-Woman makes her grand entrance. And then Peter Parker reacts in his usual manner. I mean, one of his first thoughts is to sue her for infringing on his shtick. Fair, more than fair. But he clocks that she just tossed a boulder as easily as he could, which is strange, because he's a superhero. In the next issue, he gets an up-close personal look at this new black suit Spider-Woman was rocking. And now we have a new costume for Spidey. How lovely is that? He feels great, he feels stronger, quicker, he's even impressed by the mechanics of the suit's ability to change. So while it all seemed like a perfect aid in this massive battle, Peter questioned why this new suit was so different. Why was it doing this? Oh well, he says, and then he returns to Earth with this new suit that just happened to activate his Spidey sense. Okay, that's a smart move, I think. And we all know that was much more than a new suit. You gotta leave things where you find them, Pete. The suit made Peter harder, better, faster, stronger, sure, but in the plot of Spider-Man 3, we also saw Peter start to brush his hair to the side and then aggressively be into jazz music. He's snapping and pointing at people on the streets, all aggressive like. You can't let the symbiote mess with your head. We have a whole movie that explains why it's a bad idea. Number 2, Silver Surfer. The Silver Surfer made his comic debut in Fantastic Four issue 48. Back in the early 60s, Norrin Radd is one of the most noble and tormented cosmic entities in the universe, born on the planet Zen-La, part of an extremely long-lived, technologically advanced humanoid race. He was already quite impressive, and then in Amazing Spider-Man issue 430, he becomes the Carnage Cosmic. Just dangerous, look at this guy. Now Carnage has the ability to take out all that anger and frustration, but this time he can take it out on the entire universe. So look out, world, this guy's terrifying. And finally, coming in at number 1, Red Goblin. The Green Goblin, before we even get to the Red Goblin, the Green Goblin has gone toe-to-toe with Spider-Man numerous times, but when he combined powers with Carnage, things got super messy. He appeared for the first time in the Amazing Spider-Man 798. Norman Osborn stole the Carnage symbiote, and after that, hell broke loose. So the rare weaknesses that the symbiote did have went away once the two villains had merged. So if you think you can use sound or fire to take this guy out, well, good game, pal, think again. Green Goblin was fine with those things, so now he's gonna be fine with them again. Even the bombs that he throws are like merged pumpkin Carnage bombs, and they bite you. They have a face on the bomb, and the bomb can bite you. The only thing that can damage the Red Goblin is the touch of Agent Venom, aka Flash Thompson. But in this issue, Flash uses most of his ability to heal Peter's leg, so now Peter's our only hope at stopping Norman, aka the Red Goblin. Kicking off the list at number 10, May Parker, Earth X. Venom from Earth 9997, aka May Parker, is quite unique when it comes to taming the symbiote. In Jim Krueger's Earth X run from 1999, May Parker chose not to keep her fantastic abilities passed on to her a secret. She embraced them, which is something I would do, I think. She was actually trained by Uncle Matt Murdock that is, to use her spider sense as if it's a radar. Things were going swimmingly until she became the target of the symbiote, the same symbiote that had been used by her father years prior. Peter rejected the symbiote at first, so now it was a little upset, and it swore revenge on the Parkers. It left an older Eddie Brock and made its way to May. Thing is, when the symbiote did bond to May, her spider sense training came in handy, and she was able to subjugate the symbiote and take control. We love a hot start, but it might get worse. And before we continue on with this list, if you want to go ahead and tap the thumbs up, if you want to, no pressure, but it really does help us out quite a bit. You guys are the best. Thank you for your support. Let's get back to this list. Number 9, Kingpin Venom. If I took one look at this guy in real life, I'd probably throw up out of fear. Wilson Fisk, straight out of Earth TRN 421, appeared in the 100th anniversary special Spider-Man issue 1 back in 2014. A rich guy who wants power. Where else to look than to get your fat sausage fingers on a symbiote? That's exactly what Kingpin did. In fact, he upgraded it. That's right, he added techno-organic improvements to the symbiote that gave him access to any and all tech on the planet. And that includes your recently deleted, so you might want to go check those are gone. When Eddie Brock and Peter Parker were duking it out, they both came to a conclusion that they should just destroy the symbiote. But that's when Kingpin came along and kidnapped the two. Great idea, guys, just a little too late. I love Kingpin Venom. When he's chasing Peter down, he's controlling tech and using it against him. It really is the worst case scenario for Pete. Peter managed to escape the beast by luring him into the woods and starting a fire. There he was able to get the symbiote off of him. See, normally forest fires are a thing you try and avoid, but in this case, with the whole tech stuff, I think we can all agree it was Peter's only choice. You get a pass this time, Pete. Number 8, The Punisher. Taking a peek into the What If series, Volume 2, Issue 44 to be specific, we find the Venom symbiote taking over Frank Castle rather than Eddie Brock. This was the most people the Punisher has ever taken out in one run. It is extremely violent. I mean, right off the bat, Frank finds Rocky Vance, a guy robbing investors with his inside trading, a guy who is about to take over the electronics industry, and now he doesn't have a face. Awesome. So after this, people obviously start to freak out, guns are drawn, and Punisher Venom starts to figure out just what is it he can do. Webbing? Okay, cool. Can it do bullets? Okay, good to know. The symbiote tried to take over Frank's body, but Frank vowed to end his own life if that was the case. So that's how he remained in control. That's the golden rule. Just put your life at risk and then the symbiote will play along. Just don't tell Don Fortunato that. Number 7, Venomsaurus Rex. Oh, what? Okay. A Venomsaurus Rex can be seen in the pages of Old Man Logan, and while it's a spectacle on its own and really doesn't need any more explaining to be cool, I'm going to explain it a bit more, because it's cool. Old Man Hawkeye actually gave us a little bit more of a backstory for this goopy nightmare in issue 6. So we see the T-Rex before its alternate version is born, just a regular scary old T-Rex. Now, it swallows venom, and for a hot moment, the daring duo believe they've actually gotten off the hook. Imagine if the Venom symbiote bonded with one of those long neck dinosaur boys. Honestly, I think any dinosaur would be terrifying. But the T-Rex? I'm shook. Number 6, Clint Barton. So while Clint may have evaded the symbiote's grasp in Old Man Hawkeye, he wasn't too lucky in the alternate reality of Earth 32323. Beginning with Civil War Volume 2, Issue 2, Clint Barton came into contact with it right after the death of Mac Gargan. After that, Venom Clint was recruited by Peter Parker in order to infiltrate the Iron, Tony's war zone following the superhuman Civil War, in order to steal supplies for Beast to finish his weapon for Project Bellcurve. So he agreed, but upon landing, the group was attacked by Stark Sentinels, and Elektra lost her life. So far, this mission was a rocky one, but anytime Venom's involved, it's at least going to be dangerous, or else, what's the point of reading it? Number 5, Demon. Great name. Coming in hot from Earth 5101, Pavitar Prabhakar made his first appearance in Spider-Man India issue 1. Pavitar moved to Mumbai with his Aunt Maya and his Uncle Bim to continue studying. He got half a scholarship and was determined to keep the success going. His best and only friend for that matter, MJ, Mira Jane, stood by his side. He got his powers through an ancient ritual, which I gotta say, I think that's way cooler than a spider just going on the hand. Nalin Oberoi, a crime lord of this alternate reality, used an amulet to get himself possessed by a demon. That demon was determined to hold the door open for other demonic forces afterwards. So Pavitar, while being chased by bullies, ran into an ancient yogi who then gave him the powers of a spider. Which sounds great, but when you find out that in this reality's Venom is a century-old demon stuck in an amulet, you get a little nervous for him. Demon Venom was freed by a cult called the Neo-Alvers, and once he was free, nearby towns were just obliterated. You had to set the name Demon, I'm not gonna lie. Number 4, Aaliyah Bell. Making her first appearance in Venom 2099 issue 1, Aaliyah Bell was injured in a crash. The same crash that ended her mother's life, sadly. Now, these origin stories are so tragic. It's like you know what's gonna happen, yet you're still thrown off when you read it. She was raised by her father, Theo Bell, and Aaliyah was having a hard time at school. Some students were bullying her because of her scars on her arm. Those kids are jerks, don't be like those kids. It's rule number 1. Aaliyah was selected to go under this experimental treatment developed by Alchemax scientist Dr. Russell. But during this treatment, she saw these visions of an ancient dark god. And all these humans bonded together to create this massive chunk of pure darkness. She wasn't having a pleasant go, but her arm, on the other hand, was now back to normal. So she at least felt a bit better in some way. But while a confrontation unfolded with this mean punk rock wannabe chick in school named Bether, a black tendril reached out of her hand and cut off the Alchemax monitoring bracelet. And that was just the beginning. You gotta be better, Bether. Stop bullying people. Number 3, Ben Grimm. Fresh out of Earth 51838, making his first haunting appearance in Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man issue 304, Ben Grimm became the head guard of a prison for superhumans, of course under the commands of President Harry Osborn. Okay. While there, that's when he came into contact with the symbiote and became this monstrosity. While the Resistance broke in the prison to break out Dr. Doom, they had to now go head to head with this Venom thing, literally Venom thing. Nice try, guys. Number 2, Ngozi. Ngozi was an excellent track star. She began her comic run in Venomverse War Stories issue 1. One frightful day, however, changed her life forever. She was involved in a horrible bus crash, which in turn paralyzed her from the waist down. Really heartbreaking premise, as are all of these, really. She was outside one day trying to catch a grasshopper for her bug collection afterwards, and that's when she bonded to the Venom symbiote. The symbiote beforehand had been evading the grasp of Rhino, but when Black Panther was killed in the battle, Ngozi convinced the symbiote to work with her in order to protect those residing in Lagos. The Dora Milaje saw all of this go down. They saw the courage in this new Venom, so they recruited her into their ranks and into Wakanda, where she would then get another life-changing upgrade into that of the new Black Panther. Number 1. Gwenom. Shooting over to Earth 65, Gwendolyn Stacy made her first appearance in Edge of Spider-Verse issue 2 simply as Spider-Woman. But by time issue number 24 rolled around, Matt Murdock wasn't a helpful ally. In fact, he was a bit evil. Yeah, he created the Venom symbiote in this world, so when Spider-Gwen came into contact with the symbiote, Gwenom was now born. Matt Murdock ordered Alexei Saitskovic to go after her father. The poor guy was beaten into a coma. So Gwenom embraced the dark side here, but you can't really blame her. Also, Gwenom's design alone worth taking a look into, and you could do so yourself starting with Spider-Gwen Volume 2, issue 25.
At number 10 is the Eddie Bedlam Hybrid. This brand new red 4-armed version of Venom looks so sleek, and I'm loving it. This character's so new, in fact, that he doesn't even have a name as of scripting this video. Nor does he have his own wiki article. So if you want to make one, please do. If you've been out of the loop on the Venom comics in the past couple of years, then what I'm about to say is gonna sound completely bonkers. But to make a long story short, this dude is the amalgamation of 2 different time-displaced versions of Eddie Brock. One version who went to limbo and transformed into a rage-fueled behemoth known as Bedlam, and the other Eddie was a version who could manipulate his own body like a symbiote. Now, obviously, I'm glossing over a whole lot here, but just bear with me for a sec. So, anyway, these 2 versions of Eddie Brock, both of whom have symbiote powers without technically being symbiotes themselves, although that's probably up for debate, face off against each other. Brock then uses his symbiote powers to continue the fight inside Bedlam's mind, where he's ultimately successful in defeating Bedlam, and the two merge to form this beauty right over here. And to put things into perspective, this new Venom had a massive showdown against Doctor Doom, and even gives him a run for his money. I mean, that is until the two of them have to team up against a T-Rex Venom, and if you feel like you have no idea what I'm talking about, good. Means I'm doing my job right. We have a lot to cover today, buddy, so strap in. At number 9 is Widow. It's about time that Natasha Romanoff, aka the Black Widow, got a spider-themed upgrade. In the aftermath of a warehouse blaze, she stumbled upon a symbiote spawned from the DNA of either toxin or venom. It's unclear which one, and I'm not about to call Mari to find out. Now, this symbiote had a unique quirk: memory absorption. You see, if she chowed down on the brains of her victims, she could absorb their memories and personalities. So essentially, it's the ability to instantly know what makes someone tick, what drives them, and then perfectly mimic them. Because, I mean, you just chewed on their brains, so they're not coming back. This symbiote here is a game changer, allowing Natasha to blend seamlessly into any situation, making her a formidable addition to the symbiote roster. So while Venom and Carnage might hog the spotlight, don't forget to give a nod to these lesser known symbiotes, like this memory absorbing marvel. If you're enjoying the video so far, please support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Top 10 Nerd, and ringing that notification bell. It helps more people see our videos, and I would really appreciate that. At number 8 is Warstar. Warstar is a Type 2 battle symbiote from the future, a fascinating addition to the world of symbiotes. You see, unlike the usual rebellious symbiotes we're used to, Warstar is a stickler for following protocols and is fiercely loyal to his creator, Kang the Conqueror. But things take a wild turn when Eddie Brock, our favorite Venom host, gets mixed up with this futuristic symbiote. Even though it's programmed to be loyal to Kang, Warstar quickly relinquishes control to Eddie and helps him take down 3 squads of Kang's guards. It even helps Eddie dump a Type 4 battle symbiote into space. Now, that's teamwork. But their adventure doesn't end there. They eventually confront Kang himself, and Warstar, though reluctant, engages in combat against his former master, now framed as a training exercise by Eddie. Warstar's powers are quite unique. Not only can he shapeshift into various forms, including creating mechanized devices, but he also seems to possess some cybernetic enhancements. You see, this symbiote can morph its hands into weapons, create flamethrowers out of him, and even replicate Kang's time sword. Now, it remains unclear if it shares the typical symbiote weaknesses, as it's shown immunity to flames, as it can literally create flame forts, spewing 2,000 degree Kelvin flames of its own. At number 7 is the Red Goblin. The Red Goblin, you guys, a mind-bending combination of the Carnage symbiote and the classic Green Goblin. You thought Carnage was insane? Well, this hybrid takes it to a whole new level. The Red Goblin first made its appearance in the comics, bringing a terrifying twist to the Marvel Universe. With super strength, speed, and the ability to generate weapons from his symbiote suit, he's a force that'll give Spider-Man a run for his money. This Crimson Menace redefines what it means to be a symbiote, combining the best, or should we say worst, of both worlds. At number 6 is Liz Allen, aka Misery. This sinister symbiote made its debut in Cult of Carnage Misery earlier this year. It's an absolute game changer. Alchemex, the shadowy company, has been conducting some questionable experiments involving the Carnage symbiote and its nemesis, anti-venom. And during a chaotic attack on Alchemex, the company's CEO, Liz Allen, yes, the very same Liz that's Spider-Man's girlfriend in the MCU movies, got exposed to this unholy hybrid, fusing the power of Carnage and anti-venom into one nasty package, transforming her into the new Misery. At number 5, have you ever heard about Serpent? No, we're not talking about the garden. We're talking about a brand new symbiote introduced in Venom number 13 in 2021. Serpent's origins are tied to the aftermath of Dark Web in 2022. You see, after a showdown between Eddie Brock and the King of Limbo, Serpent emerged onto the scene. But what sets the Serpent apart from the more well-known symbiotes? Well, he's not your typical gooey alien life form. Since his debut, Serpent has bonded with some intriguing characters. We're talking about Donald Blake, the human form of Thor, and even Desmond Pitt, also known as Darkoff. Serpent is a mysterious addition to the symbiote family, and it's fascinating to see how it interacts with these other characters in the Marvel Universe. At number 4 is Rascal. You might think you know all about these symbiotes, but hold on to your web slingers because here's one that's been flying under the radar. Rascal. This cheeky symbiote made his way in the free comic book day of 2022, Spider-Man Venom #1. But what sets Rascal apart is its rather tender age and immature nature. You see, he's currently teaming up with Normie Osborn, the grandson of the notorious Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin himself. Dylan Brock, in an act of benevolence, handed over Rascal to Normie as part of a mission to assist Eddie Brock. With Rascal on board, Normie's taken up the Red Goblin mantle once more, a nod to the previous tangle with the Carnage symbiote. So here's a symbiote that's fresh to the scene and ready to stir up some trouble in the Spider-Verse. At number 3 is the Extremobite. The Extremobite is a symbiote like no other, emerging during Null's rampage in the Marvel Universe. But what sets it apart is, well, Tony Stark, otherwise known as Iron Man, who whipped up a little something called the Extremis virus and unleashed it on a symbiote dragon. The result? DNA rewrite extravaganza. Post-DNA remix, this symbiote didn't stop at just bonding with its host. It decided to shack up with Iron Man's suit first. Talk about an unexpected twist. And after a brief fling with the armor, it found a more permanent home in the form of Cletus Cassidy, aka Carnage. Now, what makes the Extremobite armor truly bizarre is its newfound powers. It can actually bend reality on a small scale and conjure mind-bending illusions. At number 2 is the Tyrannosaurus symbiote. This unique symbiote, introduced in Venom 2018 #1, is a standout for its ability to spawn offshoots. Imagine one symbiote giving birth to little symbiote babies, each with its own agenda. But this wasn't your typical birth, as it all started with a chilling twist. You see, after a confrontation with Thor, the Tyrannosaurus symbiote got itself deep frozen in ice. S.H.I.E.L.D., always up to something, recovered this frosty friend and decided to use it for the Sim Soldier program. They aimed to recreate the Super Soldier Serum, and in the process, they birthed several offshoot symbiotes. One of these, aptly nicknamed Tyrannosaurus, latched onto a soldier named Rex Strickland during the Vietnam War. The Tyrannosaurus symbiote, everybody, a whole different level of symbiotic history. And at number 1 is Bedlam, but this time before he was turned into that super cool version of himself. Bedlam, born from a time-twisting mess, is a version of Eddie Brock with a serious thirst for revenge against Spider-Man. I mean, more so than he already had. And like I previously mentioned, after a showdown with the original Eddie, he begrudgingly teams up. Now, Bedlam's standout feature is his powers. As a King in Black descendant, he's got all sorts of potent abilities. He can jump into other symbiotes and control them. He can also time travel and shapeshift. Oh, and he's a fan of combat and terrible puns. So Bedlam is one symbiote you might not have seen on your radar, but he's a real game changer in the symbiote world.
Number 10, Lasher. Lasher was created when a company called the Life Foundation forcibly extracted 5 offspring from Venom. You see, during the Cold War, the Life Foundation believed that a nuclear holocaust was coming and wanted to create a superpowered police force to protect this new world, or, utopia that they were creating. That's when they decided that a symbiote police force would probably be the best option. One of those 5 symbiotes was Lasher. Lasher merged with Ramon Hernandez and is known for his green color and the tentacles on his back, which, was his primary attack, and for the most part, it was very effective. Number 9, Phage. Also one of the ones created because of the Life Foundation, Phage bonded with Karl Mack. Phage is known for his orange and black appearance and being able to mold his body into sharp blades, similar, to Carnage, which was effective against his opponents. He's also one of the larger symbiotes. He has a build that is very similar to Venom, which along with those blades would make, a really deadly combo. Number 8, Agony. Agony, also a Life Foundation creation, bonded with Leslie Jasnira. Agony was unique in that she was able to spit acid that could burn through almost anything. Agony also had the power to absorb and regurgitate chemicals. Oh god. That's so gross. She also had a very different look than her siblings. She was bright purple with hints of black and had wavy hair. Of course, she also had sharp teeth and massive claws. Number 7, Riot. Riot is, well, you guessed it, another symbiote created because of the Life Foundation. Riot bonded with Trevor Cole, who was a mercenary. Riot took on a very similar appearance to Venom. His build, size, and color scheme were all very similar. He's also considered to be the most violent of the Life Foundation creations. Riot is also the only one of his siblings to make a live-action appearance, so far. He was the main antagonist in the 2018 film Venom. Now, in the film, he didn't actually merge with Trevor Cole, instead he went with the head of the Life Foundation, Carlton Drake. Who knows? Maybe we'll see some of Riot's siblings in future films. Number 6. Scream. Can I get created because of Life Foundation for 500? Oh, thank you. Scream ended up bonding with human Donna Diego. Scream's color scheme is also very unique, at least for symbiotes. Scream is yellow and black. Also, it is believed that Scream is the strongest of the symbiotes that were extracted from Venom. The reason being is that even though, she was eventually defeated, she took out and killed the host of the other 4 symbiotes that were created by the Life Foundation. Scream also used her long, flowing hair as a weapon, whipping it and slicing her foes. Number 5. Hybrid. Have you ever wondered what would happen if 4 symbiotes merged together? Well, that is exactly what Hybrid is. Hybrid is Riot, Phage, Lasher, and Agony merged into one. All 4 of their hosts were killed by their sibling Scream. Hybrid merged with Scott Washington, who was a guardsman at the prison The Vault, where all 4 of them were actually being held. Now, Scott ended up realizing these 4 symbiotes weren't actually all that evil, and that the experiments that were being done on them were actually causing them a great deal of pain. So, he decided to free them, and he got fired for it. They eventually bonded with him, and because of that, Scott actually regained the ability to walk. You see, years earlier there was a shooting that killed his brother and left him paralyzed. He wanted to go after the people that caused this and kill them, but get this, the symbiotes actually told him not to do it. They didn't actually want to kill anyone. So they ended up finding the people responsible and handing them over to the authorities. You see, not all symbiotes are bad. Also, since there were 4 different symbiotes merged into one, Scott had to deal with 4 different personalities. Man, that would be an experience. Hearing all those voices in your head, probably make you go a bit crazy. Number 4, All Black the Necrosword. Alright, so this one isn't technically an old symbiote, but it is the oldest symbiote. You get it? You know what I mean? Okay, what I mean by that is, even though it was introduced in Thor God of Thunder number 2 in 2013, it was revealed that it is technically the oldest symbiote ever created. It was primarily used by Gore the God Butcher. It was so powerful that it could kill gods and celestial beings, and every time it did kill them, it took their blood and got even stronger. It instantly became a fan favorite, and because of it, we got one of the most popular Thor stories ever written. And, fun fact, it has also been used by Galactus to destroy worlds. The thing is insanely powerful. Number 3, Toxin. Toxin is one of the newer ones on this list, but of course, that doesn't mean he's actually really new. Toxin debuted all the way back in 2004. Now, since all symbiotes create their offspring alone, they don't actually need to mate with one another. This eventually ends up happening to Carnage. Now, Carnage was naturally worried because each offspring is said to be stronger than their predecessor. Because of that, Carnage was ready to kill it as soon as it was born. Good old Carnage. When Toxin was born, Carnage just couldn't kill it. He did try, but Toxin was just already too powerful, and it ended up bonding with Patrick Mulligan, an NYPD officer. Toxin is also red and has a slim spider-like appearance when he was bonded with Patrick, but later on he ended up bonding with Eddie Brock and grew to be a lot bigger and way scarier. He also has an amazing healing factor and is more resistant to sound and heat than most other symbiotes. Number 2, Carnage. Carnage is the first child of Venom. Carnage is all red and is one of the most powerful and terrifying symbiotes around. Seriously, this guy is what nightmares are made of. And to make matters worse, he bonded with a serial killer, Cletus Cassidy, who we will finally see in live action for the very first time this year in Sony's Venom 2. Fingers crossed it turns out well. I'm really hoping. Okay, but back to the comics. Carnage was created when Venom left behind his offspring in the prison where Eddie Brock was being held. This new symbiote offspring made its way to Eddie's cellmate, Cletus. Cletus then broke out of prison and began murdering a ton of people. No surprise there. Carnage also went on to become one of Spider-Man's greatest foes. Number 1, Venom. The original symbiote. While he may not be the strongest or technically the oldest, Venom is still considered to be the best by a lot of fans. There's a reason people have grown to love symbiotes so much, and it all has to do with this guy. He was first introduced when he bonded with Peter Parker, giving him, the famous black suit. Although, fans weren't instantly happy with Spider-Man's new look. It did become a lot more famous and well liked as time went on. They eventually did make him change back to his, good old red and blue spandex, and the alien symbiote found its way to another host, Eddie Brock. Fans just couldn't get enough of Venom, and to this day, he is regarded as one of the greatest Spider-Man villains of all time. I mean, the guy had his own film in 2018 and it grossed over $856 million at the worldwide box office. And that was with a mixed response. Not a lot of villains could do that.